People are trying to sell T-shirts. It's a business. This is an occupation.
Picard. Greetings, my friends. We are here once again to discuss Star Trek Picard Season 3, aka the only one that matters at this point, all the way up to Episode 5. The halfway point has been breached. This one was entitled Imposters. Before I go any further, if you are new here, maybe you've just otherwise forgotten, there will be spoilers ahead, and boy, are there some doozies of spoilers in this episode. I was torn over the fact of what I should use for my thumbnail and my background, because obviously there is a prime candidate that is made for being used for this purpose. However, I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to put spoilers out there, especially when this show is being aired outside of the US at different points in time. There's tons of spoilers already. I'm probably being paranoid. Nobody probably cares, but I wanted to play it safe just in case there's one person who wants to see this without going into it and getting spoiled. Let's kick off this episode. Last episode was the fourth, and in my opinion, it felt very much like the end of the first movie of the show. Episode 1 was probably like a prequel. 2, 3, and 4 were in essence their own self-contained movie, with some little plot lines of things that will be carried forward, and the overall structure of the storyline of Jack Crusher being the through line. That being said, this episode picks up exactly where we left off, with the Titan having escaped the nebula, and they're enacting repairs. Riker transfers control of the Titan back from himself to Shaw, and Shaw informs our three main characters, Picard, 7 of 9, and Riker, that they're in essence going to be screwed because he is called Starfleet, and they're going to get their comeuppance. And then Shaw tells them, I'll leave you three alone while you get your BS story in order. Really liked that. Really liked this moment of levity before things kind of kick back into action. So Starfleet is indeed already on their way, and they arrive before long on the USS Intrepid. Point of note here, it is a new design of a ship. I do enjoy it. However, whenever I hear Intrepid, I immediately picture it looking like Voyager. There is a security officer on board who wants to come over, interrogate Picard, Riker, and of course 7 of 9, and the rest of the crew of the Titan to figure out exactly what the hell just happened in this nebula. We find out right now that something a little bit interesting is going on. They are refusing to transport over, and they're sending 3 officers on board a shuttlecraft. Based on what we find out later, I don't know if this is the case, but it seemed very, very intriguing that 3 officers are coming aboard a shuttlecraft. Way back in the first episode, or maybe it was early in the second, Jack indicated that 3 people had come to them wearing Starfleet uniforms, and that was a ruse, that was a charade. Could this potentially be either the same people that came to interrogate him back then? Is it possible that these infiltrators, these changelings, whatever you want to call them, might be utilizing groups of 3 for some purpose? I don't know, I might be overthinking that. It really rang something in my memory, so maybe that's important. Coming up on the main pivotal reveal of this episode, so one more chance if you don't want that spoiled. I'm 2 for 2, baby, on calling characters that are going to return that people think have no shot of happening. First, Moriarty. Now we've got freaking Ro Laren back in the show. Not 100% in the role I thought she was going to play. However, she is tangentially related to that. I thought she may originally return as kind of an underworld guide for Raffi on her whole side quest. That was before I knew that Raffi and Worf were teaming up. However, we do find out here that Ro Laren is in fact related to that storyline, and as we find out at the very end of the episode, she is Worf's handler. So Raffi was under Worf. Worf is under Ro Laren. Ro Laren is in Starfleet Intelligence, and she is the one that's putting all of these pieces together. After she left Starfleet at the end of TNG, she joined the Maquis. That lasted for a while. Obviously, the whole Dominion War thing happened, and then she was put in prison and recruited by Starfleet Intelligence. Thank Terry Matalas he did not put in Section 31, at least in an obvious way right here, because I am so more than tired of them. But she was recruited by Starfleet Intelligence. She's super paranoid, and she is the one right now basically tracking down all of these changeling infiltrations. We find out that they have infiltrated at least 8 other instances on Starfleet vessels that's being kept hush-hush. The changeling on the Titan was introduced earlier than Picard and Riker were actually on the ship. Therefore, they were already in place doing this subversive thing before the whole plan to steal the Titan came into act. So that makes sense. Closing that potential plot hole, I really like that. And then we learn a little bit more by Beverly in sickbay with the Trill Doctor Doctor, they have discovered that the new form of changelings are an evolution. They're not only able to take shape, they're able to almost perfectly mimic humanoid bodies, physiology. The normal blood tests no longer valid. After the one impersonating Crash LaForge last episode was killed by Seven, it did not revert to its gelatinous state, and they're doing some science stuff on it, and basically the organs are even being recreated, even so far as to having blood that doesn't revert. So all of their analyses, all of their programs, all of their protocols are now thrown out the airlock, and it looks like even the biofilters on the transporters have no way of detecting them. Or if they do, that could potentially be why the transporter chief was the one taken over on the Titan, and why Rolaren and co. did not want to use the transporters here. Just throwing this out there, is it possible that the transporters are able to fully integrate these changelings into a more fully solid form? For instance, they take the form before they transport, the transporter chief is on their side and reintegrates them in a more physical body. I have a feeling that might be something similar to what Moriarty was pretending to do back in TNG when he made it look like they could transport holographic matter and reconstitute it as solid matter on the transporter. Interesting if that is the case. I'm just throwing out a wild theory. I don't know if that's going to come into play later, but that is a very, very interesting and possibly deadly new thing being added to the series. We get no more with Vadic here, however. I didn't really miss her because everything was just kicked into high gear. But I do want to just point out that pivotal conversation that we had between Rolaren and between Picard. They both felt a little hurt with the way things ended. Obviously, neither of them had closure with each other, so to have that interaction here was nice. It was set in 10 forward on the holodeck because, of course it was. They have the set. They're not going to do Dixon Hill, although I 100% want to see Dixon Hill before the end of this freaking season. And they have this heart-to-heart. Both of them have been holding on to these feelings that they didn't necessarily have to confront until right now. And to see that, they're using this lack of closure, this lack of trust, this feeling between themselves to really trust each other that they're not changelings. So they're using human frailty. They're using a lack of trust and their human failings and emotions to build trust, because these are things that a changeling would not be able to impersonate and would not be able to copy. This human thing, I don't know if I can call it that because Rolaren is Bajoran, but this need for physical beings to express emotions and have complex things is what actually provides this saving grace moment that they can now trust each other. And because of what happens eventually in the episode, and another spoiler alert, she ends up dying after this great reintroduction, saving the Titan, saving the crew of the Titan, and ending her life to damage the Intrepid so that our valiant crew can get away. Shaw and a skeleton crew is left on the Titan. Now they're becoming fugitives, and the actual changelings have infiltrated Starfleet so much that they're now going to pin this mutiny, I suppose, on the Titan crew. We went back to the Raffi and Worf subplot. I feel like they've dragged it on a little bit too much, but things finally come to a head at the end of this episode. It was wonderful to see the interaction between Worf and Raffi. They go back, they track down another associate of Sneed. This one happens to be Charlie from Fringe, who's playing a Vulcan. He's been in a lot of other things, but he was my favorite damn character in Fringe. So disappointed they ended up dropping him before the end of the series, but Charlie from Fringe playing an underworld mob boss Vulcan. Wonderful to see this other side of a Vulcan. Kind of reminded me of DS9 and the Season 7 episode where we saw a Vulcan serial killer. It's nice to see Vulcans applying logic in directions that don't necessarily make sense with the stereotypical type of Vulcan we've seen since Spock. He, in essence, here is the one responsible for breaking into the Daystrom Institute. We do find out that the Daystrom Institute has a completely unbeatable, sophisticated AI defense system. Almost 100% completely sure here that this is, in fact, going to be Moriarty or a version of Moriarty. Perhaps it won't actually be the version of Moriarty from TNG, although I think that is likely. And there's only one way to get past him, and this guy has some sort of chip that actually has this bypass. Is this chip going to turn out to be somehow related to lore? Is it his personality? Is it data? Something like that. I don't know. It seems very intriguing if that's going to be the possibility here. The cherry on the top of all of this is at the very end, when Worf is trying to contact his handler, which was revealed to be Rolaren. He actually gets in touch with both Riker and Picard because just prior to Rolaren's death, she handed Picard her Bajoran earring, which contained all of her research, all of the data files, the entire history of everything she has been digging into this changeling plot about, and now Picard and Riker have it on board the Titan. They're on the run. Worf reaches out, trying to reach Rolaren. She's not there, and we've got this nice moment where he asks, "Where is Ro?" And they just have this look because she has just sacrificed herself, hopefully for the safety of the entire damn quadrant. All of this was just almost nonstop. We had some great character beats, some great moments, a nice cathartic reintroduction and send-off to Ro, who is a character we never really got a proper send-off for. Kind of sad that she went out at the same time because it would have been great to see her in more adventures, but she is in a Defiant comic book right now with Worf, so I might have to read that and see how that plays out. A whole lot of other things going on. Last week I mentioned that it was revealed Vadic was in fact a changeling. I saw in some other reviews a lot of people thinking she was not a changeling. She was in fact being controlled by a changeling on her hand. I thought that might be the case as well, started theorizing about that, but it was confirmed on another live stream by one of the producers on the show that she is in fact a changeling. What I am kind of curious about, and we got Rolaren here, so I'm wondering if it might be related, are these changelings possibly related to the decimated ranks of the Maquis? The rest of the Maquis were basically taken out after Cardassia joined the Dominion. Is it possible these changelings kind of took over the rest of the Maquis, and that's how they infiltrated? I don't know, I feel like there might be a connection there. The Maquis, the remaining founders, the Breen, the Cardassians. I don't know, it seems like there's something more going on than just shape-shifting changelings. We also got to see during the Raffi and Worf subplot that they used a mobile emitter to trick the Vulcan. Does that mean mobile emitters are now just commonplace? Have they been reverse engineered enough to the point that they can be used in all sorts of situations? I don't know, but I have to imagine this will lead to something later on down the line, other than the way they used it last season with Elnor, which made no sense because they were in an alternate timeline, which would not have had technology come back from the 29th century. The Confederation had no point in having a mobile emitter. I don't know why. This is making me angry. Justice for Icheb! Justice for Icheb! Okay, I digress. One more big point going on here. What is going on with Jack? He's having more of these hallucinatory things. At one point, he was even taken over by them to the point where he killed 4 Starfleet officers who just so happened to be changelings. He had these hallucinations. He was seeing himself killing Starfleet officers a couple of times earlier in the episode. It culminated in him actually doing so. However, it just so happened they were 4 changeling officers. Is Jack some sort of undercover spy? Is Jack, in fact, some sort of Manchurian candidate version of a changeling, doesn't realize he is, and they're activating his kill mode? It reminded me a bit of a, let's say, an emergency combat hologram or something along those lines. Is he infiltrating Starfleet by not even knowing that he's a changeling? Did the original Jack die? Did the original Jack have such a problem that Beverly had to splice some DNA into him that was maybe changeling DNA? Maybe she spliced some changeling DNA into him or something along those lines. Perhaps it was the only unstable element that would allow him to survive. I don't know. There's got to be something going on there, especially since in one of the very last scenes, Beverly was talking to him and she told him, "You used to have these vivid nightmares as a kid. There was very little I could do to get you to sleep because of them. You were just so scared all the time." And then Jack said something along the lines of, "I don't remember that. There's something wrong with me." And the look on Beverly's face wasn't concern. It wasn't, "Oh no, I've got to fix this." It was, "Oh crap, you're gonna figure this out," or "Oh crap, something bad's happening." So she definitely does know more than she's letting on here. Is she in fact possibly a changeling, or is there something wrong with her? Has she been compromised? I can't imagine all of this is going to come true. There's definitely more going on there. During one of his visions, one of his hallucinations, during that door thing, they're like, "Come find me." That sounded to me, and I can't be sure, a lot like that homing signal Data had in Brothers, where he and Laura went back to Noonien Soon. Come home. Is it possible there's something similar going on here? Is Asung related to this? Is that conceivable? I don't know. We've yet to see Brent Spiner's character, so he should be popping up any day now. And it looks like next episode, our crews are finally going to intersect and we might have the entire original cast back on screen together. I hear a lot of people love episode 6, so I can't wait to find out what's going on. What did you think of this episode? I missed about 432,000 things I planned to mention, but I've already yammered on for so long that I just need to stop now. Tell me all of your thoughts down below. What did you think of this episode? How are you enjoying the season so far? We're halfway through and I am just thrilled. This is the Star Trek I wish we had gotten a long time ago. Leave all your thoughts below. Hit that like, do a share, and hit the bell, I guess. I never talk about that. Why not hit the bell? But until next time,
I will leave you, sir.